Well, joining me to talk about a very busy week are three MPs from the different parties. Mona Fortier is a Liberal MP for Ottawa-Vanier. John Brassard is a Conservative MP for the Ontario riding of Barrie-Innisfil. And joining us from Windsor, Ontario, or Bell River more specifically, is Tracey Ramsey, the NDP member for Essex. Thanks for joining us, Tracey.
Happy to be here.
Okay, well, all three of you, let's start. I mean, it was a very, very eventful week. It ended with a lot of events, many of them dealing with connected topics. Mona Fortier, your government gave the approval to the TMX pipeline, the Trans Mountain Pipeline, and you also saw pass the C69 environmental assessment bill, as well as C48, the tanker ban in the BC coast. How would you say, as this session ends, this sitting ends, how would you say your government has done in terms of balancing what has proved to be a very difficult balancing act between the environment and the economy?
I will answer that question, but first, if I may, thank everybody who recognized Mark Warwa, a great parliamentarian, yesterday. It's important to recognize his hard work, and also that we are Indigenous Day today, and hoping that everybody takes time to celebrate with Indigenous communities. Now, to answer your question, yes, it was a hard-working session. We worked through it. We actually had the opportunity to really demonstrate how it's important to put a price on pollution and also make sure that there is a balance between the economy and the environment. And that, I believe, we demonstrated by working with the amendments of the Senate that came back and also passing those bills.
But as the week ends, you're getting criticism from those who are opposed to the TMX, the Trans Mountain Pipeline, and you're getting skepticism from those who say that they're not even sure that the pipeline will be built in due time.
Well, we have a real plan that will address not only the economy, making sure that we transition right, but also by protecting the environment and making sure that, yes, we continue to go ahead with TMX and build the pipeline, but also start having, protecting today's jobs and start having the next real jobs that will happen in the future, that we will make them greener with that transition fund. So we're trying to find that balance, and I believe that we did, and we will work very hard and hopefully receive the next mandate to pursue on this.
Okay, John Brassard, the government says it's done, it's delivered. It's delivered a pipeline, it's delivered environmental legislation, it's delivered a tanker ban. What do you make of it?
Well, with respect to the pipeline, it's delivered nothing at this point, except 3 announcements that they are going to build a pipeline. On the tanker ban and on Bill C69, they've effectively handcuffed our energy industry. We saw premiers from across the country come out in opposition of these 2 pieces of legislation. The Senate traveled from coast to coast, speaking with Canadians, speaking with stakeholders, those who are going to be impacted by these pieces of legislation, proposed upwards of 180 amendments. Many of those amendments were rejected by the government, and now we're facing a situation where no more pipelines will get built. Who's going to make investment in this country with the level of uncertainty that exists today?
Do you stick to your previous leader's prediction? Rona Ambrose famously said the TMX will never be built. Are you still convinced that the TMX will never be built?
You know, having lived in Ontario and gone through the gas plant scandal and saw what that meant politically and how the Liberal government in Ontario under Kathleen Wynne canceled the gas plant in order to save a couple of seats, I've been very, very skeptical. We've all been very, very skeptical as to whether this government's commitment to build the TMX pipeline is in fact there. And so, you know, the fact is that they bought the pipeline with $4.5 billion of taxpayer money, 3 announcements now, no shovels in the ground, you know, and not a real plan in place. I mean, the government has said that they've approved it, but until those shovels are in the ground, until people are actually working, and until we're getting our products to market, I think all of us, every Canadian, should be cynical and skeptical as to whether they're going to build that pipeline.
Okay, Tracey Ramsey in Windsor or in Belle Riviere, what do you make? I know a lot of your NDP colleagues were heralding the passage of C48, the tanker ban for northern BC. What do you make of this progress in terms of the environment and the economy?
Well, on the tanker ban itself, certainly Nathan Cullen and all of my colleagues from BC have been calling for this for an incredible amount of time. To see this finally pass is the right step to be taking. It's about protecting our ocean, protecting our coastal communities, and it's absolutely what needs to happen. You know, when it comes to the Senate, though, I have to express some really deep concern about obviously things that the Senate is allowing to die. Bill C-262, Romeo Saganash's bill. This is a travesty. This is exactly why the Senate needs to be abolished in the view of New Democrats, because we continue to send good legislation through our elected members in the House of Commons over to that other place and watch it die or watch it get, quite frankly, just left there as we did with Ronna Ambrose's bill. But when we get back to the environment, this week was just hypocrisy at its height. We have a climate change emergency that's being declared, and within 21 hours, we have the Liberal government approving the TMX pipeline, pouring more money into a dirty, old, leaky pipeline that does not have the approval and consent of Indigenous communities who are now taking it to court promptly as soon as that decision came. Coastal communities, BC. This is divisive across our country. And the fact that the Liberals use the same flawed process that they previously used to ram this through once again, I just think it is just shameful. And we see not just environmentalists, but let's talk about young people across our country. Young people are going out at record numbers. They were in Montreal, they were in Vancouver, they've been in Toronto. They are going out and calling this government out on their phony environmental platform. These are Stephen Harper's targets. What the Conservatives came out with this week was basically, let's leave it up to corporations and businesses to do their best, and they'll do what needs to be done. That hasn't worked. Okay. The only party with a true plan for the environment that is about action is CPAC.
Okay, well, that opens the door to my other question. That is, John Brassard, your leader this week, Andrew Scheer, released your long-awaited environmental policy. Now, it is the one thing that's clear is that you're promising there will be no carbon tax. Some critics, though, have said what is not clear is what you're proposing as an alternative. You're asking companies that surpass certain goals and emission targets would be asked to reinvest in green technology. A lot of the critics, as I say, are saying that you're lacking in some details. Are you giving Canadians enough information to make an informed choice as the election approaches this fall?
I think if you look at the policy that Andrew announced this week, 55 different action points and action items, many of them will still need to be determined. But, you know, the criticism that's coming our way, where was that criticism when Justin Trudeau announced a 2-page document in advance of the last election? This is the most comprehensive plan that an opposition party has put forward to Canadians. And we're quite confident, not just in the action items, but also the results of which. And you know, Martin, when you look at the pillars that were established, reinvesting in green technology, making sure that those companies do that, incentives for Canadians to do their part more than what they've been doing already in terms of reinvesting in their homes and getting credits for that, whether it's replacing windows, replacing old furniture, whatever the case is, but more importantly, taking this fight globally. Canada has technology, we have innovation, we have ingenuity, we play a small role in terms of those greenhouse gas emissions, and nobody's diminishing that, but we also have a global role to play, and Canada can lead in that aspect, and that's really what our focus is going to be. Not abdicating our responsibility here at home, but taking the global fight of climate change truly global and helping those countries reduce their emissions with our technology.
Okay, Mona Fortier, we know where the government stands on this, but you did have the PBO report, which is casting doubt on whether the government will reach the Paris targets. The question is, going into an election, is it a lot easier just to be opposed to a carbon tax? Because people, some of the polling suggests people balk at paying for reducing pollution.
Well, before I address that question, I would like to comment on the Scheer plan, which is, for me, I see a fake plan with not many actions that really address the problem, that we have a problem in our hands, and our kids in the future won't get a better environment if we don't really tackle the real actions need to be done. So for me, it's a fake plan, and it's been done behind closed doors with, I believe, oil lobbyists, and I don't think that we can address and really bring change to our
What about
economy.
the attractiveness, so the inherent attractiveness of just, I mean, whether it's right or wrong, the inherent attractiveness of just saying you won't have to pay a tax. If you elect us, you won't have to pay a carbon tax?
Well, I believe in price on pollution. We have to make sure that we put that price on pollution and have a balance on economy and environment. And that's the approach, and a real approach, that the Liberals will be taking in the next election. And we will continue to build on the progress that we've done in the past mandate.
Okay, I want to ask Tracey Ramsey in Belle Riviere. Let's, I guess one of the big questions too is, you mentioned all of those young people coming out, very much environmentally active. It's not a secret that you're feeling the hot breath of the Green Party, the federal Green Party behind you in terms of polling results. What do you do to distinguish yourself at the NDP and to make sure that you can gather and you can garner that vote who's in favor of your environmental policies?
I wouldn't say that we're feeling that pressure. I would say that the Greens are really very conservative in a lot of their views. They've just voted against legislation against working people in BC. Greens are certainly not a friend to working people across Canada. The NDP is the party that represents working people. The Conservatives and the Liberals in this Parliament, ordered Canada Post workers back to work, violating collective bargaining rights. So the NDP is the only party in Canada that stands for the rights of working people. While you may look at our climate goals with Greens and NDP, the fact is that the NDP is far more progressive. When we talk about the rights of Indigenous people, when we talk about a lot of our platform, we really are the party that is to the left of the Liberals. And the Liberals certainly in 2015 said all the right things, took a lot of our platform, said they were going to do them. They haven't followed through. Let's talk about the broken promises of electoral reform, no pharmacare plan, things that were promised to Canadians that only New Democrats will truly deliver. So for us, we're going into the campaign knowing that during this session, we stood up against big corporations, and Liberals and Conservatives before them, they continue to do what big corporations want over what people truly need in our country.
Okay, I'm going to jump in because we're almost out of time, but I'm going to jump in with a challenge. We'll start with you, Tracey. Sorry to interrupt, but we have, in less than a minute, if you had to choose one or two words beyond the talking points, but we are heading towards an election, this upcoming fall election, if you have to choose one or two words to describe what's at stake in this fall election, Tracey Ramsey.
Well, all we have to do is look at Ontario. Services for Canadians are at stake, our healthcare system. If you want to see the cuts that are happening under Conservative premiers, then, I guess that Andrew Scheer's your guy. But if you want to have a country that's going to take care of the people and not pander to rich corporations, then the NDP is the party that's going to stand up for your values. Okay,
going back through the panel, John Brassard, in a word, if you had to choose a word about what this fall election, I mean, we are this summer heading into the election, pre-election campaign. What's it going to be about?
I think it's about the economic future of this country. Tracey mentions about Ontario, living in Ontario, 15 years of Kathleen Wynne and Dalton McGuinty, debt and deficits as far as the eye can see. This government, this Trudeau government, is on that same path, and we need to stop it now so that future generations can be sustained economically and young people don't have to pay the price for what's going on now.
In a word, Mona Fortier, and thank you all for your brief answers. In a word, what's this election going to be about? So
focus on the middle class and build on the progress we've done on jobs, economy, and environment.
Okay. In a word, I will give you all my gratitude. Thank you very much for joining us, and thanks. I want to wish you a productive summer in a pre-election mode.
It's been great getting to know you, Martin, over these last 4 years, and we look forward to seeing you back.
Pleasure working with you all.
Thanks
a lot. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Tracey.
Thank you.